Viggo, always so great to see you. How are you? How are you holding up?
I'm holding up well. I'm glad.
Good.
I wish I was there in person with you as usual, but can't do it this year.
That's okay. We'll take this. Well, congratulations on this wonderful film. I saw it at TIFF and I watched it again this week just to remind myself because it was so beautiful. Listen, we know you are a man of so many talents. There's really nothing you can do. So why directing now? Why was this the time to now dive into this phase of your life?
Well, I've been trying it for a long time, probably like almost 25 years. It
Yeah.
was the first time I had another script, another story. Tried to get that made, but it's just a question of raising the money. Independent filmmaking, even if you're someone who's directed movies before, it's always difficult to raise the money, especially if it's because they tend to be more original type stories, maybe not with everything resolved at the end, more true to life, I guess. And in my case, I understood that it was difficult, even if I'm a familiar face to some people as an actor.
Yeah.
I had never shown any proof whatsoever that I could direct a movie. So even to
Yeah.
produce them and so forth. So I understand the reticence. It took a while, even for Falling. All the scripts I've tried, couldn't raise the money. Falling took a couple of go-arounds before we finally were able to raise enough money to shoot. So it's just the way it was. I'm glad it was this story in retrospect because it is quite personal. It's based
Yeah.
on recollections from my childhood and adolescence and my parents and their experience with dementia and so forth.
Well, I was going to ask you because obviously, it had to have been personal and some real life. But how do you separate the fact from the fiction? And how hard was it for you, Viggo? I mean, you're starring in this as well. And the scenes with you and Lance were just wonderful, but so painful to watch some of them, the language, the thing that comes out of his mouth because of the dementia. You can't help that. So what was that like for you?
Well, Willis, the character Lance Henriksen plays, and Sverrir Gudnason, the Icelandic actor who plays him younger. I mean, he was always a difficult character, but yes, it's gotten much worse with dementia. I had not intended to act in it originally because I thought, well, I'll have enough on my hands just trying to direct and for the first time. And it's a complicated story, many time periods, lots of kids, all that stuff that you see in the movie. But I realized after failing the first time to raise the money and then losing the money again, I thought, well, if I act in it, maybe it'll be a little easier to raise the financing. And that did prove to be true. Also, because all this time waiting, years waiting, I'd been working with Lance Henriksen, who was on board from the start. And we'd worked on the screenplay a lot and on the father-son relationship that's at the heart of the story.
Yeah.
So I felt like, well, this will be a good continuation of our work together. And I think I was helpful to him because I wasn't just a director standing outside trying to help him do his best job possible with the character. I was in there with him on an equal footing, as two actors trying to figure out some very difficult emotional scenes. Mm-hmm. And I think we made a good team. It was a great experience. I really enjoyed watching him build that character from the start.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Both of you are so good in this film. Okay, so I have to ask you, I mean, you've worked with so many fantastic directors, of course, mostly David Cronenberg. We all know that. But who has influenced you the most? Like, whose style did you take and think about when you were directing this film?
Well, I didn't, at least not consciously. Obviously, everything you experience in life and as a movie goer and as someone who works in the movie business obviously influences you somewhere or another without even thinking about it. But I didn't consciously, neither did the cinematographer, Danish cinematographer Marcel Ziskin. We didn't copy anybody's style. We talked about a little different kinds of camera work and approaches to filmmaking, but we didn't imitate any style. What I did get from the good directors I've worked with, above all David Cronenberg, was a couple of things that I put into practice, which is one is you can never prepare too much or too early for a shoot. So we really found our crew, our locations, everything. We really had a plan of action for each day of work. We had only 5 weeks there in Ontario to shoot. It's 25 days. It's not very much for a movie like this. Winter, short hours, kids, limited hours, so forth. So that was one thing. And the other thing which David Cronenberg is so good at, but others too, you know, Jane Campion, Matt Ross, even Pete Farrelly, the
Yeah.
way they communicate with the cast and crew, the way they do their casting and the way they communicate, you know, from day one, I said, look, what I've learned from the best directors, before we do our first shot, I just want to say, we're going to make this together. Even though this story is my idea and I have a pretty good sense of how I want to do each day's work, carry it out. You know, a good idea can come from anybody at any time. So bring it on. Don't tell me tomorrow about your great idea about today's scene because it'd be too late. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Well,
what,
also being an actor yourself, you appreciate that because you can be an actor's director. You know what I mean? So, well, listen, I wish I could talk to you for much longer, but I want to congratulate you on this, Viggo. You've done a wonderful job. And I do thank you for putting in David Cronenberg as a proctologist. I think that worked for him. It really did.
he enjoyed himself a little too much, I think. No, he was great. Yeah. He was great.
Happy holidays to you, and we look forward to having you
Same.
back here in Canada, my friend, and best to you and your family. Take care.